shows lean left, some lean right, but we lean local and business. This is North Georgia Business Radio X with Phil Bonelli. For the next hour, we will celebrate the businesses in our area and the people that run them. Find us on Facebook at North Georgia Business Radio X and online at northgeorgiabusinessradiox.com. Now, here's Phil Bonelli.
How do you build a great team? I'm your host, Phil Bonelli, joined here today. To say this is a special treat would be an understatement, but that's what I'm going to say. One of my best friends, major mentor, Mr. J.D. Mealor, a master of making teams, I would say. J.D., welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
This is awesome.
You know, I just thought about, too, this is North Georgia Business Radio X. I'm thinking about business teams, but you are involved with teams in every aspect of your life. You lead with your wife, a family of 4 kids, which is a team.
It is.
You are always very involved with your kids' sports teams, be that golf, basketball, whatever.
Yeah.
Team at work.
Yeah.
Very involved with SEA. All sorts of teams.
For sure.
Teams to the max.
I haven't thought about that.
Yeah. I'm going to talk about you for a minute, JD. And then we're going to talk about...
Should I leave the room?
No, you should stay right here.
Okay.
You should stay right here. I'm going to share some things about JD, and then we're going to chat about some of these things. I've worked with JD for forever, and JD is great at building teams. And obviously, teams are comprised of individuals, and I think JD does an excellent job. I don't know if I've ever seen anyone do a better job of bringing the best out of people. I think about like UGA, and I'd heard it said recently, Coach Smart, he's a great recruiter, and now like he's just doing the best job of developing talent as well. And obviously developing is really important. But I want to tell a quick story.
You know why that is, by the way?
No.
He doesn't only recruit talent. He recruits mindset. So think about Ladd McConkey from Chatsworth, Georgia. Nobody paid attention to Ladd McConkey. The first time Kirby saw him wasn't on a football field, but was in a basketball gym.
Wow.
He assessed Ladd McConkey's mindset, in addition to his physical prowess. So, that's Kirby learned from Nick learned from Belichick, but they get all caught up in 4 and 5 stars. And by the way, when I recruited Phil Bonelli, he was a 5-star.
Get out of here.
You were 5-star. Everybody knew it. A consensus 5-star. But my point is that you get a 4 or 5-star because Nick and Kirby show up at your high school. You know what I'm saying? That's what gets you if you're being recruited by those guys, then you must be good. But Kirby's been pretty clear that it's mindset that he's after. So we'll talk about that. You're going to share a story. I'm sure it's a really great story.
Well, yours was even better. No surprise. But
okay. I didn't mean to. That's
all right. It's great. But you bring out something great. To develop talent, you have to bring in talent that's developable. I don't know if developable is a word. It's a mouthful.
I'm not going to say it. Willing to be developed.
Willing to be developed. All right, so here's what happened. Here's my story that I'm going to share about you. I worked for JD for like 5 years. Great 5 years, had a great run, did a lot of good things. Then JD pursued a different opportunity. I pursued a different opportunity in the same company, and I went to work for a different manager. And that manager, he was okay. He had some technical knowledge, actually, that JD, he had some different technical knowledge that JD didn't have. And I learned some technical things from him, which were good. But I then went back and worked for JD again 3 years later. And it was such a huge lesson for me because JD, because he always believes in his people, he instills a confidence in people such as that this different technical skills, which I had gained on this other person who was not as good at bringing the best out of people, you then, all this stuff coalesced being back under you because whatever's inside of a person, you help bring the best out because you build them up. And I'm going to share a couple things that you do that are excellent. First, you build them up. People, you always, I feel like there's got to be a consensus of folks working for you that you love them as a person, you believe in them, and you will always fight on their behalf. And that means a lot. and then that you're right there with them.
In the trenches.
In the trenches. So that was a lesson for me. You as a leader, you have to build people up, and you've got to make them believe that they're going to win, and you got to give them opportunities to win and build momentum. If you're just joining us on North Georgia Business Radio X, I'm your host, Phil Bonelli, here with the one and only JD Mealor, talking about building teams.
So it's interesting. Your points. Something I've never told you before. I'm gonna bring it out right now.
All right.
On North Georgia Business Radio X. The first time we were together, when I'm building a team, I do independent reference checks. I network and say, hey, what do you know about? I mean, I was doing it today with somebody that you and I are looking to add to our team. Which probably is a topic we should talk about, is getting consensus from the other teammates. But you were young, you were doing some you were working at a bank branch down in Oakwood or somewhere, if I remember correctly. And I think the question mark at the time was, could you close? Could you be a closer? My source is confidential, as you can tell, but without knowing it, the first 8, 10, 12 months that you and I were together, all I focused on was helping you to close so that you grew confident in closing. And now it's like ABC, baby. Always be closing. That's Phil Bonelli. So, I appreciate your kind words. I don't know that I've never thought of myself as somebody that brings out the best in people. But I do want to be an encourager that is committed to accountability. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Especially in today's world where encouragement is at a minimum. There's not a lot of encouragement today. And I've just always found in a work environment, and I'm not talking about puffing someone up. I'm talking about, here's, you and I talked about this before. When we were at Wells Fargo, a competing bank to where we work now, which is Regions, much different cultures. Regions are very kind. Wells Fargo is just Wells Fargo. We'll leave it at that. Some corporations recruit for strengths and then try to fix weaknesses. And I've never understood that. And that's just not how I lead. What are your strengths? Let's amplify those. Mm-hmm. Let's let you live in your area of greatest giftedness. Mm-hmm. And that's where you will flourish.
Yep.
And I don't sit down and talk about these things. I just know that my connection with you and the other folks that we work with, I want everybody to enjoy their job, make other people happy, make new friends, solve problems. There's no secret sauce.
Boom. There's not a secret sauce, but the way you pour the sauce is a little different for every person because every person is different.
Yes.
So you mentioned, I love you sharing about how you were wanting to totally focus on helping me close so I could build confidence in a process and a closing. And I appreciate that.
You did, man.
And each person is going to have different things. Some people, their focus might be on initiating new opportunities, right? Whatever it is, the leader has to tailor for what that person needs.
Yes.
So you got to know the people to do that.
You better. Yeah. We can dig into that.
Man, all right. So we will take a quick break before diving back in with the question of this when we come back. How do you tailor your leadership to the different people on a team? Which that's going to be a little different for depending on how many people are on your team. So how do you tailor your leadership when we come back on North Georgia Business Radio X? How do you tailor your leadership to the individual personalities and strengths on your team? Welcome back to North Georgia Business Radio X. I'm your host, Phil Bonelli, and that is the question we'll be asking a guy who knows, Mr. J.D. Mealor.
That is a good question, and you pose it in a way that it would be in my little satchel of leadership qualities, and it's really not that way. So let me share with you my perspective on that. Is there was a video I saw years ago. It was a Chick-fil-A corporate video, and it sort of showed you behind the scenes. It was like in a Chick-fil-A restaurant, and it would show you a picture of an elderly lady sitting there eating maybe a biscuit and drinking coffee, but it would also show you that she had recently lost her husband, and then it would show you a family. And the point about it was that you never know what somebody else is going through, right? And we all have these different experiences, both professionally and personally. So you think about the team that we have now that is generally domiciled in the same place, but everyone has different experiences professionally and personally. Everyone has different motivations. In our world of banking, some people are motivated to make more money. Some people are motivated to hit a goal. Some people are motivated to keep the boss off their back. So how do you figure that out? It could be a corporate gift survey of sorts, maybe a Clifton Strength Finder or something like that. But listening is a really good skill to have as a leader. So then you can tailor, an individual coaching. The other thing is, I don't like for things to be regimented or scheduled. There's a philosophy across large corporations today that you get more out of your teams if you schedule a one-on-one coaching session. I prefer non-scheduled impromptu coaching sessions.
Amen.
And they look different for everyone on my team. Again, because we have one of your colleagues who's a 20-plus year banking veteran that doesn't really need my help. Okay? I mean, we were both leaders at the same bank years ago. He's been in leadership. His circumstances that allow him to work for us now are such that his greatest motivation is flexibility in his schedule. And I know that. So our coaching sessions are, well, I can say 100%, never about, hey, you could do this better. It is, what can I do for you to free you up to be better at what you do? A flip side is somebody that's not a 20-year veteran that is building their banking practice, who may be sort of, struggling to find new opportunities. That conversation looks different. Am I answering the question?
Yes.
So that conversation is dramatically different because everybody's in different stages of their career, different stages of life, and you got to know those things. You gotta know what the people that you're around are going through. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned, we're talking about banking. My wife Amy and I, we teach a small group at our church. And over the last, let's just say, month, I've spent time with a guy that's going through a divorce. I've spent time with a guy that's, had some health problems. We've spent time, Amy and I, with a newly married couple, less than a month. You can't. Everyone's circumstances are different. And therefore, a one-size approach to leadership just doesn't work in today's society. We're not drill sergeants. We are people that are doing life with other people. Rarely, and we know people in town that are like this, but rarely do you have a friendship like you and I have, where we consider each other one of our best buddies. But we've also had situations where you've had to talk to me about, well, JD, you're getting off track here, and saying that looks different for everybody. It's got to be, everything's custom today. What are a couple things. Everything is, disposable. I don't want my relationships to be disposable.
No.
But also everything is, the trend is for everything to be customized. So an effective leader customizes their leadership to their audience and is willing to understand the motivation of the people they're talking to and, more importantly, help them get to where they want to be. Is that good?
That was great. If you're just joining us on North Georgia Business Radio X, I'm your host, Phil Bonelli. You need to go back and listen to what we were just talking about. But that is very good. It's customizable, and a couple things that stand out that you said. First, you got to listen. Mm-hmm. Number one, because you don't know how to guide and direct if you don't know what's going on with that person. Not just know them overall, but people are changing their dynamic. You have to keep listening, right?
Well, isn't there two types of listening? I know you know this. I mean, there's listening to respond, and then there's listening to receive. You get what I'm saying? If we were in a conversation and your mouth was moving, and I hear these words, and I'm only thinking about I have to respond to these words, that is weak listening. Receiving while you're listening, here's my point, and you've heard me say this before. It's never what you say, it's always what the other person hears. So as a listener, you gotta be receiving what the other person. Now, am I good at that all the time? No. There's busy stuff going on, or I got to be somewhere else, or there's something else that's on my mind. But as a leader, don't listen to respond. Listen to receive, and then do something with it. Mm-hmm. Especially if you're a leader and you're talking to somebody on your team, that person is trusting that you are listening to receive, not listening to respond.
Well, when you look at yourself, you're only able to do that if you actually care. I mean, that's the only way you can do it, if you care. And if you look at every person as a valuable individual, you're willing to do that. But if you just looked at them as a means to an end, or some sort of malleable object that you're going to use, you do not value them at that level.
That's right.
So you have to listen.
That's right.
You got to care. I love also, you mentioned you're not the biggest fan of like scheduled meetings. I also am not, because we have a good relationship. We are in fairly constant dialogue, so we don't have to schedule that. I don't like those scheduled meetings because they just feel so inorganic. I could see, and they just make me feel kind of uncomfortable. Yep. I could see where there could be a need for them. I think. Well, you go ahead, JD.
Impersonal.
And that brings to mind that I think there's a limited number, and that probably depends on the leader and on the team, but there are only so many direct reports a leader can have and still be able to have unscheduled, inorganic, or organic, conversations.
Yeah, that's right.
If you had 100 people, you would just have to schedule every single.
No, then you'd have to lead other leaders to listen the same way.
Right.
Listening, the organic conversations. Why? What if the coaching session was on Thursday, but something important happened on Monday, and you're like, well, I'll just talk to the boss about it on Thursday. Well, you lost the impact of it. Mm-hmm. Call the boss up on Monday when the thing is happening, and seek their counsel. Part of this relationship is the folks on our team are willing to be coached. It's not just, I'm the coach and listen to me.
Well, because they know you care, and they know that you're there to support them, so they want that.
Yeah. We want to be successful.
And we are all rowing in the same direction, which is good too.
Yeah.
Because if everyone's goals are aligned, then they trust that care that you have, meeting your goals is meeting their goals.
Yeah.
Which is good.
And it's not just a number goal. It's satisfaction. It's fun along the journey.
All right. We'll be right back on North Georgia Business Radio X. We've been talking about building teams, but every team is made up of individuals who at some point enter the team, at some point exit the team. How do you best handle that? Welcome back to North Georgia Business Radio X. I am your host, Phil Bonelli, here with J.D. Mealor. JD, all right, we're talking about teams, building great teams, maintaining, growing great teams. How do you best welcome new folks on the team?
That is something that I think is of greater importance today than it may have been in the past, especially in the professional environment. You know, we talk about teams, and I can't help but think about, you know, our beloved Georgia Bulldogs or, you know, whatever else, a sports team. But when you're talking about a professional team where you spend 6, 7, 8 hours a day together, alignment of principles and values is of great importance. Now, it's not as the leader, it's my job to recruit to the team. So I'm going to turn the question back on you. When I've identified someone that I think is worthy of consideration for the team, what is my next step that we've been deploying?
Getting them in front of the team.
Yes.
Because you want the team to know.
Yes.
How are they going to fit? Well, and I think you accomplish multiple things with that, which all have a tremendous amount of value. First, because team is so important and culture is so important, you want the team's perspective, right? But then you also are giving that potential new teammate the opportunity to really ask the questions that they want, because you want them to know the good, the bad, and the ugly, and because you want them to know what they're getting on board for, and so you want them to hear it from the folks on the team.
Yeah, I think that's an important aspect of our recruiting. Not saying that we run a club, but I am saying that the price of admission onto a team that I run is pretty high. We just don't take all comers.
Right.
And you know, so I choose somebody, and most recently you and your colleague from Athens would go buy them lunch. And you have the conversation about, like you said, the good, the bad, and the ugly. You know, what does it look like to work at this entity? What does it look like to work for this individual? And then in doing so, my perspective broadens, because what am I? I'm judging somebody by their reputation in the market. I'm judging someone maybe by deals that we've lost to them, thinking, hey, if we're going to lose deals, I want that person on my team. Or, you know, maybe with today's technology, I'm making an assessment of somebody's LinkedIn profile.
Sure.
So I need you and your colleagues that are also members of the team, lay eyes on that person, have a conversation with them, come back, not report to me, but come back to me with your input, your feedback. Really, most recently, the conversation has been, hey, Phil, will they fit? Will they fit? Will they run at our pace?
Right.
Will they uphold our commitment to high morals and values? Stuff like that. So building the team. And two, we're very flat. I don't see that anybody works for me. I see that everybody works with me. And so I don't see it as a hierarchy.
Right.
I see it as we all have a job to do. Let's go do it together. Does that make sense? So,
totally.
When you get to know somebody, I think the difficult thing in assessing someone's addition to the team is, you know, estimating their drive for results, for example. How do you really tell that through an interview? Or, you know, I think you can assess moral compass, but, you know, their ability to produce results can't be delineated in a couple of conversations. I don't know.
If you're just joining us on North Georgia Business Radio X, I'm your host, Phil Bonelli, here with J.D. Mealor, talking about bringing new people on the team. We've been chatting a little bit about how key it is for both the potential new teammate, the recruit, and the existing team that you get buy-in from the team as to the new teammate. But then let's talk about, J.D., when you've got somebody who is going to be joining the team. To me, that's a crucial time, and I've seen it done well, and I've seen it done poorly. But when somebody's just joining in, they need to be welcomed into the culture. They need to be given tools. All these things need to happen. And you could do it good or you could do it bad. What are some things you think are key of, hey, let's say the first week, the first month, etc.?
Yeah, so I don't really appreciate that question, Phil, because that's an area of improvement for me.
Well, maybe it's a good question. What are the ways in which you want to improve? What are the keys to doing that well?
Yeah, I think the way that I've done it in the past that I feel like works well is in our environment, if you will, have them interact with as many people on the team as early as possible. Lunches, joint calls, meetings. Almost assign them a day in the life with everybody that connects with them. And then I just I find myself just defaulting to the sort of daily conversation. Hey, how's it going? What can I help you with? Is there anything in your way that I need to sort of tear down? Those types of conversations to occur. As an opportunity for improvement, I don't have it mapped out. Again, I think it goes back to everyone is different. Their skill sets are different. Their little black books, if you will, their contact list is different. So if we bring somebody in on the team that is currently a commercial banker, for example, they're already in the role for which we're recruiting them.
Right.
It's safe to assume that they have customers that they want to reach out to, or they're going to reach out to them. The runway to pipeline is much shorter. However, if there's someone else that may be joining the team that has been maybe a coach in the past, or most recently they've been coaching others, they may not have that contact list, right? To where somebody's going to be wondering where they are to call immediately. Then that onboarding looks different. Who do you want to talk to, or who do you know already? So again, it really is getting to know people, right, and customizing your approach to coaching, onboarding, accountability, all of those things.
So getting to know people's key, and one thing you said, which I think is very important in the early phases, is them getting to know the rest of the team. So maximizing their time in the culture with the other folks, which that's an extra challenge right now. It was when folks were not in the office as much. I mean, it's pretty tough to dive into a new culture without being there.
Yep.
Because then all you have are scheduled times together.
Yep. That water cooler talk is really
so key.
Invaluable.
So key. So the time together, because they need relationships, they need to know who to call, they need support, and they just need to start getting inundated in the culture of the organization and adding to it.
You've heard the term culture eats strategy for breakfast? You never heard that?
No. I'm writing it down.
Yeah, culture eats strategy. And what's the difference? A strategy is a set of actions taken as a means to an end, where a culture is what you do daily as a result of being around people of a like mindset. As salespeople, we have a sales strategy, but what if our culture was that? Our culture is one of deep commitment to customers, I think, and you correct me if I'm wrong, deep commitment to one another. Picking on each other, having fun, good laughs.
Deep commitment to overcoming obstacles, which plays through in that. I mean, you just have to have some perseverance personally, but then also we're always looking to help each other because I've got issues that somebody else has some good ideas of how to fix because they've done it.
That's right.
And vice versa.
For sure.
Breaking down barriers.
Yeah.
Rainmakers, barrier breakers.
Rainmaker, barrier breaker, baby. That's right.
All right. When we come back on North Georgia Business Radio X, we're going to talk about how to identify when somebody is not the right fit for the team. All good things must come to an end. Sometimes bad things must come to an end too, thank goodness. Welcome back to North Georgia Business RadioX. I'm your host, Phil Bonelli, here with J.D. Mealor. And we've been talking about teams, building great teams, developing great teams, having new folks join your team and how to best do that. There are times when somebody needs to exit the team. Generally, when that's the case, it's a best thing for both parties. It really is, whether both parties might not feel that way, but ultimately it is. So, JD, one thing I mentioned that I think makes you an excellent leader is your care for the folks on your team. You care. You fight for the folks on your team. You know them personally. You care about them. You care about their families. And that probably makes it extra hard.
It does.
If it's not, not working out. Mm-hmm. But that can happen.
It does happen.
How do you navigate that? How do you, when you spend the time, you're building up this great team, you care about these people, how does that go down?
Yeah, look, and I have a really, really, really long fuse. I want to stick with people as long as I can.
Which, let me just pause and point out, your fuse is exponentially longer for people on your team than it is for people who are outside of your team, because you have a very long fuse for people on your team. If there's people outside of your team who you think of as harmful to your team, that fuse is a lot shorter, which I think is a good leadership quality.
Well, I mean, at home, my job is to prepare and protect the little Mealors that aren't very little anymore.
No, they're big.
But a lot of that comes into play in the workplace as well. Prepare and protect. Think of that as coaching. Prepare for calls, prepare for interactions, and then protect. A valuable lesson I've learned on this, exiting someone from the team recently, is if you let it go on too long, the rest of the team begins to feel it, experience, and the leader begins to lose credibility if they don't deal with it. It's not easy because I do inject myself into my folks' lives, and sometimes people are just, they're having a rough go of it, or maybe they're just going through a hard time. But when there's an end of the road. There's typically signs that point to it. If you're literally driving down a dead end road, there are these signs that say dead end road, no outlet or something like that. Pay attention to those signs. What would signs be? Lack of engagement, dodging the boss's phone calls. So, but I want people to succeed. So I tend to stick a little bit longer. And I think that when you know something's wrong, whether it is interpersonal, it's performance-based, hopefully it's not, but sometimes it's an ethical dilemma. You just need to hit it. Just hit it and move on.
And I think, clear expectations and clear conversations are so key, because when you see these things, you got to talk about them with that person.
Okay, so you're bringing up something that I'm studying personally, which is the concept of unmet expectations. I'm beginning to believe that almost every disagreement within our families, within our businesses, are rooted in two things: selfishness and unmet expectations. And you just said it, that they don't live up to the expectations. And why is that? Well, I'm not a proponent of lowering my expectations. I have very high expectations. I have extremely high expectations for you, for example.
Which helps the people who you have those. If you're supporting them and attaining those things, that's helpful for those people.
That's right. I mean, I sort of abhor mediocrity. It takes no effort to be mediocre. It takes a lot of effort to be above average and to be different.
It's easy to suck.
Yeah, it is. Not much effort to do that. But, unmet expectations, why do they arise? Well, number one, we're probably not clearly communicating. Phil, I expect you to do these things. And you know what they are. We have a goal, we have calls, we have customers, we have community involvement. I don't have to go through that list with you all the time because you know what they are. They're not unmet because you're but when there's somebody on the team that's not getting their job done, that's not contributing, by the way, to the team, it's because they're not meeting the expectations, spoken or unspoken. You're not doing the job, that's an unmet expectation. If you're talking about leading your family at home, it is, are the expectations clearly defined? I expect you, I got two teenage boys now. I expect you to be home at this time. If with Life 360 on our phones, my lovely bride Amy can know, are they leaving the girlfriend's house in time to be home? It's unmet expectations. It drives everyone crazy. So if I can do a better job of communicating the expectations to you, to your peers, to those around us, and I'm trying to avoid conflict by being very clear with my expectations.
Yes. Oh, I something that being involved with business has helped me with is seeing in close family partnerships or partnerships begun, business partnerships with friends. Sometimes folks think that they don't need to clearly define the expectations because they're close relationally already, and that the expectations are assumed. And that is completely wrong. On the outset, the more you want a relationship to succeed, the more you must clearly define the expectations, so there isn't a reason for conflict.
Oh, yeah.
So that you outline it right away so everyone knows and can agree upon them or disagree, and you can modify.
For sure. I mean, if Brock Bowers runs the wrong route, it ends up in an interception. Brock Bowers is known as a great route runner because he does what's expected of him. The coaches have clearly defined, on this call, you run this route, and Stetson will get you the ball, and you're going to go for if he gets off that route, and it's the same thing. It's the same thing in life. A long time ago, I had this manager, and he said that people will give you what you accept.
Well, people will give you what you accept. But then also I find, and maybe it's just with a certain kind of person, maybe if you're recruiting the right sort of person, but like people will also live up oftentimes to the expectations you have of them. So if you act like you expect somebody to do great, they're going to do better. Mm-hmm. But you have to hold them accountable, which is the people live up to what you allow them to do.
Yeah, well, I mean, so what do you think is more important? A goal or a standard?
Ooh.
I'm asking you.
I'm going to go standard.
Yeah.
Totally.
What's the standard?
What's the standard?
A goal is more of an aspiration. A standard is what you do daily. You get what I'm saying? I mean, if you're a salesperson and you have a revenue goal, a sales goal to meet for your company, you can only meet that goal if your standard is so high. If the expectation has been clearly defined, you got to set a standard that gets you to the goal. Standards, a study of standards is really interesting. As it relates to how to accomplish the most in your day. I mean, you rise to the level of your habits, and your habits create your standards. So,
So that's good stuff. And you have to set a standard which is going to get you to the goal. Mm-hmm. And then you have to live by that standard so that you will get to it.
Yeah. And look, man, most people, the dirty little secret is 100% of the people listening to this right now could meet their standard by lunch if they just got in and got to work. Now, if you're working on a manufacturing line and you have a shift work and you can't speed the machine up to get your work done, but if you're a people person, if you're in a sales role, the standard can be set pretty early in the day, and then you can get it done.
I love it. Well, I can't believe our time together has almost come to a close. Good thing I'll see you later today and tomorrow, so I don't have to be sad about it. But I appreciate you being on the show. I appreciate the things you've done in my life to help set standards, hold me accountable to standards. And it means a lot. And I'm so thankful for our listeners that they get to hear a little bit about team building and standards from you today.
Loved it, Phil. Love you, man. Thank you so much.
Love you, man. Blend it with a fist bump.
Yep.
You've been listening to North Georgia Business Radio X with Phil Bonelli. What local business do you know that should be highlighted on our program? Let us know. Just search North Georgia Business Radio X on Facebook or contact Bo at businessradiox.com. See you next time, and remember to support our local businesses.